Hi guys, Bran here, and welcome to my feelings about the PTB, about the kind of out of nowhere drop of the night. And what is this guy's name? I always forget it. Vittorio. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, the release of the night chapter that has been kind of like in the works for quite a while now. Kind of supposed to be inspired by For Honor, but it's still an original chapter, so they can do whatever they want with it, which is honestly kind of the smarter way to go about it, instead of having to do something licensed and go through the For Honor guys every time they want to do anything. But it kind of just dropped out of nowhere. Because, you know, it was about time for the next chapter of Killer and stuff and have that PTB tested. But, like, surprisingly, DBD Leaks and stuff kind of didn't really report out on all of this, or with, like, the date, or, like, models and weird stuff like that. Like, they didn't really, they weren't on top of that like usual. A lot of, and it wasn't just them, it was like a lot of leak sites in general didn't leak a lot of the stuff. So it's interesting. So this is actually a lot of a big surprise. So I want to get into like what I feel about it. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. So first I want to talk about the Knight, the killer himself. He has a very, very unique power. He has AI, just like Nemesis has AI zombies, but he actually places his. His don't come naturally, and they're not active the whole game. They're kind of like summons. He's like weirdly like a Pokemon trainer. I know that's a really crude way to put it, especially when talking about a big monstrous killer, but he's kind of like a Pokemon trainer. He has 3 little dudes that do different things. He's got, I'm going to forget their names. There's the Carnifex, which is the stompy one. He breaks gens and pallets really good. And then there's Assassin, which is more of the chase one. They can all do damage, by the way. I want to preface that. More of the chase one that's better in chase. And then you have the info one, which I always forget the name of. But he has a third one that's more about like info and detection, more so than anything. So you can use him more of as a scout. You cannot pick them. They're just kind of on a rotation. I wish they could, you could pick which one you wanted at a certain point. Like if you were trying to use them as an anti-chase, you could set out the assassin. But if you were trying to like see if there's survivors around a gen or kind of like immersing, you could use the scout one. But they're kind of just on a very static rotation based on whatever one's available. So yeah, he summons these dudes. And like I said, they have different strengths, but they can all do the same things as the other guys. Just some guys have better strengths than the other ones. And he releases them, and they patrol in this little area. And if they find a survivor, they will chase after them. They have a little bit of a startup to when they find a survivor to when they actually become active. So it's not like Artis's birds where he just sets them down and they can immediately damage somebody. His take a while to like activate and go after people, which makes him a little less awful in terms of the anti-chase department, at least on the survivor side of things. It makes him a little less painful to play against, because his ghosts do have this kind of, they're called guards. Let's use the official terminology, guards. The guards do take a little bit of a while to activate, so there's a little delay there that gives a lot of leeway for the survivors. But it's still pretty brutal in chase, so he still has a pretty strong anti-chase ability, because once they are active, you are quite literally being chased by 2 killers at the same time, which is pretty terrifying. And obviously, if one's on one end of the loop and one's on the other end of the loop, it's either get hit or get hit, which is a pretty it's a pretty painful situation, which once again, like I said, reminds me of the Artist, except not as potent. But then again, that's kind of where we ended up with Dredge, right? Like, Dredge had a very similar mechanic to Artist, where he could put his remnant on one end of the loop and himself at the other, and it kind of creates a 50-50. But over time, people realized that wasn't as frustrating as like Artist's anti-chase, which is like the bird, and it's literally you get hit no matter what, as opposed to Dredge, where it's like it's very likely, but it's not a guarantee. And his is very much the same, where it's like it's very likely, but it's not a guarantee. So it's at least better than that. And unlike Artist in Dredge, the Knight does not have map mobility. He can send his guards out to scout, right? He can send them out to scout, and those guards can, if there's a survivor in their area of detection, can go after them. But in terms of himself being able to physically be places, he is not able to do that. He is not physically able to. He's a 115 killer with no movement abilities. He can't teleport to his guards or anything like that. So that's a good balancing factor, that while he has a lot of like macro pressure in the sense that he can send guards out to scout, to do chases, to do all this stuff, he can't physically be there himself in a lot of these scenarios. It doesn't have any like crazy map mobility. So that is a good balancing factor for him, I think. And I do enjoy that the most about him. I want to emphasize it. My favorite thing about him is his macro pressure. He feels kind of like you're playing an RTS. It's really weird. Send this one guy to go check that gen, send that guy to actually kick that pallet that I saw got dropped earlier. I'm gonna send this guy to help me and chase. And it's like you're moving your little pawns around. It's like you're moving your little pieces around in an RTS game. So there's a lot of strategy to this guy, and I feel like I can't wait to see somebody get really, really good, like somebody main the Knight and get really, really good with him and see kind of like the crazy stuff that he could possibly do, because he really does seem like the you know, what is that phrase? The ocean is your horizon. That's not what that's called. The sky's the limit. That's what I'm looking for. The sky is really the limit with this guy, it feels like. And I can't wait to see somebody who actually like mains and is passionate about this guy really bring him to life. I'm very, very excited. Okay, as for the Survivor, we kind of got to get into the perks now because the Survivor's just a skin. He's apparently another observer, kind of like the observer himself, but just hasn't been seen until this point, I guess. And obviously he's conventionally attractive, so that's going to get a lot of attention from, you know, people that are interested in that. So that's cool, I guess. But I guess we have to get into the perks now because, you know, the perks are the only thing that makes Survivor unique because they're all just skins. So let's go ahead and start getting the perks. I'm gonna go over the killer perks first because we just got done talking about the Knight, and then we'll move on to his perks, Mr. V's perks. So the killer perks are pretty interesting, but they are definitely not going to shake up your meta, especially if you're somebody who gravitates more on just like bringing the only like good slowdown perks. So the perk that I feel like most people are worried about to come out of, like especially survivors that are coming out of the Knight's perks, is Hubris. Hubris is if you stun the Knight or whoever has this perk equipped, you become exposed for 20 seconds. A lot of people are afraid this is going to be used in tandem with Spirit Fury, you know, and the End Fury combo, and you know, you're going to get an insta down for free. But honestly, eating through 2 pallets and having to run 3 perks to get a free insta down does not sound like a good trade. To me, that doesn't sound like a horrifying thing. I ran Hubris all day today, and I only got use out of it literally once. Matter of fact, especially with the Knight himself, I feel like a lot of the times you're using the guards to kind of circumvent a pallet drop. Like if they pre-drop the pallet or they drop the pallet too early, you're using the guards to kind of circumvent the pallet itself. So I ran Enduring for some of my games, and I got stunned once. Like I literally ran Enduring in this character because I was like, okay, I'll run Enduring, I'll run in Hubris, and you know, we'll go for it. And I got stunned like once, like literally once. I was like, oh, okay. So I don't think Hubris is going to nearly be as intense as people make it out to be. So I think if you're a Survivor, maybe you can hold off on this. And this is going to be a fun little gimmick thing that you do every once in a while. And obviously it has a lot of counterplay in the sense that like once you realize, like once one person goes down to Hubris, everybody else just pre-drops. So, you know, you just don't do that again. The perk that'll probably be like the most conventionally useful, although I'm questioning if it's worth the perk slot, is Nowhere to Hide. So Nowhere to Hide is if you kick a gen anywhere within 24 meters, you are going to see the auras of other survivors. And this might be helpful because there's a lot of situations as killer where you'll push 2 people off a gen and you only see where one guy goes, but the other one just kind of like hides behind a wall or something and waits for the other guy to come out, and then he just, you know, sticks back on the gen. But obviously if you know, chase 2 people off a gen, hit one guy, go back, kick the gen, you'll see where the other guy's hiding and immediately be able to stop them. Also, good to note is that if your survivors do end up 3-genning, this is going to be an incredibly helpful perk to help, you know, kind of like enhance the 3-gen, make it even more devastating. So if you play for 3-gens, this perk's probably for you, but other than that, I think it's kind of like, it's just nice. It's like nice B perk. It's not going to like change the meta or anything, but it helps. It's a fun info perk. His strangest one is Hex Face the Darkness, which is a new hex that every time you hit a person, a hex is lit around the map, kind of like a la Hex Play thing, and survivors just scream intermittently, which is weird. Very, very weird. Obviously, the auras are revealed with it as well, but it's just an interesting perk because obviously if you're already in chase, unless somebody just shows up near you that's like also on death hook or something like that, or they're on death hook and the person you're chasing is not. Usually I just kind of stayed in chase while using this perk and didn't really take advantage. It was nice to know generally where people were while I was in chase, but not quite sure. It wasn't. I think it's balanced by the fact that the survivors see the person you hit. So even if you get value out of like, okay, well, I hit someone and now I know this guy's over here. The guy also knows you're over there because they're watching the chase happen, you know. So they know if they scream that they gotta move, right? So I don't know. I didn't get a tremendous amount of value out of this. I'm sure somebody else can. Also, this hex unlights itself when the chase ends, whether that be like you down them or the survivor heals up. So this hex actually unlights itself. So survivors actually have to go cleanse this during the chase if they want this perk to be gone, which is pretty interesting. It's probably my favorite part about it, is that just like that weird interaction that it has. But yeah, I'm excited to see if a content creator besides me can get this to work, because I thought it was just kind of like a strange perk. All right, as for the survivor perks, they are kind of the winners this time around. With this group, is like they definitely seem to be the more interesting, the more fun to use. Fogwise was the one I kind of liked, even though I'm kind of questioning if it's better just run alert. Fogwise is if you hit a great skill check while repairing a generator, the aura of the killer is revealed to you for about 6 seconds there. So that's I like that a lot. I like that, like, I'm already on a gen, I'm already hitting great skill checks. Let's give me something else special, you know, for something that I'm already doing, right? So I like that you can kind of keep an eye on where the killer is at while you're doing a gen. But also, you know, like I said, like, alert exists and gives you a lot of, you know, similar information just without having to put any input on your part. So I don't know. It seems kind of like in the same vein. So if you don't like alert, you probably won't like Fogwise. If you enjoy alert, you think alert's underrated, you'll probably like Fogwise. So yeah. Quick Gambit is probably, I don't know, this one, people were like afraid of this one. I've heard content creators say that, like, oh, Fogwise adds 8% speed boost to repair actions when you are in chase with the killer and you run within 25 meters of a generator. I get that, like, giving your teammates a passive 8% boost to slowdown sounds scary, but if you're in chase and running within 24 meters of a generator, you're probably sandbagging your teammates anyway. You know, like, the killer is going to hear that gen probably being worked on and go shove those guys off the gen anyway. The only way I think this would be helpful is if it was like, I don't know, like a I don't even know, because I was gonna say like a 4-man abusing it, like each person like trades off taking chase and let you guys just greed the gen. But even if you're sitting there greeting the gen, the killer could just come back and keep hitting you guys until they eventually down you. So even greeting in that regard is kind of dumb. I don't see a lot of potential in this perk. Maybe I'm wrong, but this one seems like if you have to kind of sandbag to get value, which is inherently not a good thing anyway. So I don't have a lot of faith in Quick Gambit. Now, Potential Energy is probably, I would say, the best perk to come out of like both sides here. The Potential Energy is really interesting because after sitting on a gen for 8 seconds, you can essentially pocket gen progress, which is very wild. So by hitting the activate ability button, you're able to kind of like fake do the gen. You're still doing the gen, but you're not progressing the bar. Instead, you're adding stacks to yourself, which you get up to 20. And for each one of those stacks, you can advance a gen by 1%, obviously up to 20% respectively if you have all 20 stacks. It's weird because when you hit the 20 stacks, you have like powered your perk. You have powered your perk, and your perk is now like active, which is really weird. So then you can get off the gen, go somewhere else, and just deposit that 20% progress that you just did on this gen, because it wasn't, remember, it's not progressing the entire time you're doing it. You're just charging your perk. You can go take that 20% and just dump it on another gen, which is really weird and interesting. Also, interesting to note, if you get hit or downed, you lose your tokens. So if you get caught while trying to go deposit your tokens, that goes away too. So it does have a very, very good balancing factor as well. I think this is going to be really, really helpful, that you can just like take gen progress from like a dead gen and transfer it to one that's almost done, and like break up a lot of 3 gens or break up very unhealthy gen situations, like looking at like Haddonfield, where like there's almost always a 3 gen because one outside the Myers house, the one inside the Myers house, and there's always one behind it typically somewhere. So maps that kind of like naturally spawn 3 gen situations, this perk's gonna be really helpful, because let's give you an example real quick. So let's say that like the killer has like Paul O'Brien overcharge, and he's like really hard defending a gen that's almost done, but you need to get it done to break the 3 gen. So what you do with Potential Energy is you go to one of the gens you don't want to do because it's going to cause a 3 gen, sit on it, and activate potential energy. So you start advancing your perk by building stacks, but you're not actually like working on the gen. So you build up 20% worth of progress by, you know, essentially fake working on this gen by charging your power. And then you come back in to have that gen that's going to break the 3 gen and just deposit the 20% onto that. So you have spent the time doing the generator. You just did it somewhere else. So you just come in and break up the 3 gen by depositing that 20%. Now, hopefully, you know, you guys can sneak in and do it. Hopefully it was already at 80%. So you just go in and you just like break the 3 gen up. I feel like the thing I like about this perk, besides it's really interesting and awesome animation that you're just like, you know, like a little sigil shows up on the side of the gen and you're just like touching it and stuff. It looks really cool. I think this perk benefits a smart player. I think that's what I appreciate about it. Cause like your idiot friend that only knows how to like sit on like mash toolbox, hyperfocus stakeout is not going to use this perk correctly. They're not going to know how to use it because it's not just easy gen pressure. You know, they're just not going to get the point, and I don't think they're going to get value out of it. But a smart player that's trying to avoid 3 gens, knows 3 gen situations, knows how to break up gen, like break up the gen spacing in a way that benefits the team. This is going to be your best friend. This is going to be really, really helpful, especially if you're running against, like I said, somebody running like overcharge Call of Brine and trying to hold down a 3 gen. This is going to be a very, very helpful tool for you. And it's only going to be helpful to players who are actually smart and intelligent, which is what you want to keep strong perks in, is people who either earned them or know how to use them, but they're hard to use. So I think this one will be really interesting for good players. Yeah, before I get too carried away, the new map, it's really interesting. It's a little too red. It's a little too red. When I was playing as the knight, I was losing people's scratch marks because I literally was like, the map was so red. The map was so red that I was quite literally losing the scratch marks in the red mist. So they could probably tone that down a bit. The map in terms of strength is kind of like, it's iffy. There's a gallows. There's a lot of like normal tiles that spawn, like 4 lanes and LLT walls. But there's also like, unique tiles to this. Like there's either a gallows that spawns or there's a burnt down town market that spawns. The burnt down town market has a safe palette, which is really good and very fun to loop for survivors. But then the gallows is just kind of useless. Like the gallows doesn't have a palette. Don't even know if it activates balance because it's not even that tall. Like it's like, why is that even there? Like it's literally a night and day to have that market tile there and the gallows spawn there. So I don't know. It seems like kind of, it does have a shack. It also has a fake shack, which is like it just has one like long wall vault on one side and then 2 open doors. It has normal shack and a fake shack, which I find very strange that it also has a fake shack, which is just, that's just bizarre, huh? The main building is nothing to write home about. There's one safe palette and then there's one vault upstairs that you can circumvent pretty easily. I think I'm cool with that considering how oppressive and obnoxious like all the reworked main buildings have been. Garden of Joy's main building has been. Like, considering recent map designs of main buildings, I am totally cool with an underwhelming main building. But yeah, also really cool. The exit gates are drawbridges. That is such a cool idea. I thought that was genius. That was smart. The exit gates are quite literally drawbridges, and you power the gate to pull up the iron bars, and then you walk off the drawbridge to escape. I thought that was creative. That was cute. I liked that a lot. That was neat. But yeah, that's how I feel about the Knight PTB. I think by and large it's good. I think for the most part I enjoyed it. Obviously we're not going to know how any of this actually plays out. You know, potential energy might actually be busted, or maybe the knight himself is actually busted and we just don't know it, because I remember people didn't think Sadako was the weakest in the world until, you know, she went live and everybody started pre-dropping pallets on her and realized she had no anti-chase whatsoever. So, you know, you never know what happens when a character hits live, what changes they'll have. Remember Wesker was fun to face because he had a 20 centimeter hitbox, and all they had to do was just like fix the hitbox to stop getting phantom hits, and then they just made it bigger instead. And now you get hit behind corners and stuff. Yeah, you never know what happens when life gets hit and how a character will end up. So yeah, that's just my feelings. How do you guys feel about if you played it or if you watched the content creator player? How do you feel about the Knight chapter? What's your favorite thing about it? Let me know down in the comments below. But other than that, that's gonna be it for today's video, friends. Thank you so much for spending time with me and being such a good, great group of people. I really appreciate you guys so much. So hopefully I'll see you tomorrow in tomorrow's video, because you guys know that I do upload daily. But if I do not see you then, I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.